Hi guys, it's David here. I just wanted to take a minute to tell you all about Football Prizes. Football Prizes is a website which, you might have guessed by the name, gives you the opportunity to win prizes to do with your club. You can win, in fact, at this point, if you're a Rangers fan, a Steven Gerrard signed Rangers shirt, nicely framed, ready to go. All you need to do is go to their website and enter. You go to footballprizes.co.uk and you'll also find them on social media. If you go to Facebook, it's Football Prizes. Twitter, it's at football_prizes. And Instagram, it's football.prizes. So easy to find them, easy to enter, and you might walk away with a lovely framed Steven Gerrard signed Rangers top. So you know what to do. Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, the podcast that enjoys when it has weeks like this where everything in the garden of Rangers appears rosy. Joining me to discuss another excellent victory, our 15th on the trot, and of course the current Timplosion going on at Parkhead is first of all the delectable Mr. Martyn Ramsey.
How are we, David, boys, listeners?
Not too bad, my friend. Also joining us is Ian Hogg. Good evening, Hoggy.
Good evening. It's it's quite the day, isn't it?
And adding a sexy element is Alex Staff. Good afternoon, Alex.
Hello, and hello, gentlemen. How are we all?
Now, I know that there's one particular listener who gives me abuse on social media when he feels that we talk too much about Celtic. I wouldn't listen to large parts of this show if I were you, mate. Right, I'm just warning you right up front that we are going to point and laugh a good fair bit at Celtic, but also ask a few, I think, important and serious questions. But we are a Rangers podcast, and the most important thing is how our own team does. And of course, we recorded another victory, our second of the season at Pittodrie, as I mentioned, our 15th straight win, which is quite ridiculous, by 2-1 in a slightly odd game, I felt, Martyn. I thought Rangers, the first 20 minutes was maybe as you would expect it. Rangers began to assert dominance, took over, obviously got the penalty, the red card, got the goal. Aberdeen should have been down to 9 just before half-time. Rangers start the second half, come out, foot in the throat, got the second. And then the game was sort of dying a little bit, but nobody told Aberdeen that. They got a goal back, and all of a sudden a match that had seemed to be done and dusted after 50 minutes put us through the ringer a wee bit, it's fair to say.
Yeah, we'll never know how nervous the players are compared to how nervous we are, and that kind of projection. I thought some immediately stopped doing everything that they've been doing for the best part of an hour, but we managed to see it out really without too much trouble after that goal, as it turned out. As a whole, though, I mean, we've spoken about it in other pods of late, that the last couple of months have been a bit of a grind, which isn't a bad thing. It's good to see a Rangers team being able to do that. Hugely busy schedule, and we've just been churning them out. But what we had hoped for, with a week's break now and kind of getting into that kind of different routine, is that we would start seeing some of the more fluent football, more purposeful, a wee bit more positive football that we've seen at the start of the season, as well as 3 points. And they didn't really disappoint other than that. But a complacency that allowed Aberdeen back into the game for the best part of that 70 minutes. We looked as good as we've looked for some time, which is exactly what you want to see. That's literally turning the screws, not just the 3 points. It's, okay, we've got some key players that are turning up again, and that's good to see.
Has one of the differences been there for Martyn? I'll just stay with you on this point. That in the last couple of seasons, basically everyone looked done in January. Whereas we have seen in the last few weeks, Yanis Hadji has stepped up, for example. Alfie is coming back to what we know we can expect from him. And there are actually players coming in and the way a squad should work. Guys like Scott Arfield, etc., earlier in the season were being quite superb, but injury maybe takes him out, dips in form or whatever. But when you get guys coming in like Aribo, like Hadji, and then also, Kent stepping up his form, I thought, yesterday, that's kind of how it's supposed to work, right? But hasn't for us the past 2 years.
It's it's how it works when you have a genuine squad of options rather than your boys and then some replacements if you absolutely need to, which is kind of where we've been the past couple of years. Kent and Morelos have been too relied upon really to be our attack and to settle games, and they have looked spent by exactly this stage. Really, they've looked exhausted, and the team have looked exhausted. Compare those Decembers, 18 and 19, compared to the one that we've just seen. Absolutely chaotic, emotionally through the ringer, especially last December with the League Cup final and the disappointment of throwing away that 2-goal lead at Pittodrie, and then that response that obviously culminated in the win at Parkhead. It takes it out of a team. It has to. But this December's just been pretty much low fare, not exerting too much energy, just getting enough done. We scare at home to Motherwell, right? We get a 45 minutes that brings that back. Just ticking over. And hopefully we're going to see some afterburners now that we feel able to. And don't discount the fact that it's a hell of a lot easier to turn the afterburners on in January, which you need to in order to go and win a title, when you are 1,000 points clear. Rather than ball deep in a real neck and neck race. That's genuine pressure at that time. You build up a cushion for a reason, because it allows you then to really, really turn that screw.
Ian, how important is week off? Well, I mean, I can't remember the last time Rangers didn't have a midweek game. I genuinely, I'm sure there was one, but it's been so long. There's been so many games. We did have that week between matches, and the team that I did think, up until the silly goal we gave away, I thought, oh, this is better. This is, the sharpness just looked back in the attacking play, I thought.
I think the last 6 to 8 weeks, David, we've looked tired. We've looked a bit leggy, and the real zip had gone from us. Martyn's right, though. We were grinding out results. 15 of them in a row, for God's sake. That week, however, maybe after the first 2 or 3 minutes where it was a bit scare him yesterday, we took control and we moved the ball so quickly. Kent wanted it everywhere. Morelos was coming deep, linking the play and then bursting into the box. We've not seen that for weeks. That week off, probably a couple of days off after the Celtic game to properly recharge, and then proper time on the training pitch. That equals yesterday, or at least certainly the first hour anyway. I can't. It's weeks, literally weeks, since we've seen the midfield and the forward line interact yesterday, like they did. Like they did yesterday. You've got to put that down to having a week off. There's not many clubs in the country have been going Thursday, Sunday every single week. And the only time off they're getting, David, is when we're playing international football. And then 2/3 of the squad are going and travelling around the world. It's been constant. It's felt constant for us as fans. Players must be, genuinely, they must have absolutely relished it. They probably wished they'd got some sunshine.
Yeah, they looked as though they'd been refreshed, but maybe in a different way to what we've seen from other clubs. Alex, talking about the goals, classic Alfredo Morelos. Both the strikes I thought were terrific goals, terrific striking play to create the space for himself, to be alive to for the first goal, and then to be alive to the opportunity for the second, and then finished with no little skill as well. 2 tremendous goals from him. Alfie's career at Rangers, and this is his 4th season with us, has tended to be terrific in terms of goal scoring, terrific first half of the season, and then the goals dry up. Not totally, but that overall I think is a fair summation. This year hasn't been his best in terms of goal scoring. He has contributed. We've talked about it on this show before. But it wasn't a case of him being a dead loss. He wasn't a man down or anything like that most of the time. He was still a part of the squad. But if Alfredo Morelos does discover his scoring boots, and we know, as I say, he can be a guy who goes on goal scoring runs, if this is when he's going to get his 20 goals between now and the end of the season, that's an exciting prospect.
It really is. Yeah, that's a bit too exciting almost. I think yesterday
just contain yourself,
I'm
right?
trying. It's more and more difficult as the weeks go past, David. I'm not going to lie.
With an awful lot of premature stuff going on in Scottish football this week, we do not need to add to it.
No, true. I think the goals yesterday showed. Well, there was two things I noticed yesterday. Firstly, they mentioned after the game that was the most touches Morelos has had inside the 18-yard box in a game since the game against St Mirren at Ibrox. But he also scored 2 goals. So that shows there was a wee bit of a different intent from him. That he was in those areas looking to get in amongst the goals in a game where, Aberdeen away, as much as we were dominating possession, especially when they went down to 10 men, it's not the easiest of games. There's no point in dressing it up any other way. It was a very good performance and a good result. The thing that I was most impressed by in the week off, I think, really made a big difference here. I can't remember any aimless is maybe the wrong word, but crosses from about 35, 40 yards out or anything like that. Anytime Barisic and Tavernier were crossing it, they generally were past that defensive line and looking to whip it in between goalkeeper and defender. A couple of deeper crosses in the second half, maybe from Barisic, and Tavernier was basically living at the back post because after he missed the penalty, he was determined to score. But things like that, the things that you see in some of the other games that we've had in December, I feel as though the teams had a chance to go away and just refocus on what they do best. And that first goal is what we do best: patient play. We tried, every pass is trying to open up, trying to move the ball forward. If it didn't work, we reset a little bit. We started again. Suddenly we get Tavernier on the ball, not quite 1v1, but may sense Johnny Hayes on his arse. And then, it's a cutback, it's one touch, it's not kind of some sort of ball whip. In earlier games this season, Tavernier would have played the cross straight away in that situation. You wouldn't have been looking to take the extra touch and find a man in the edge of the box. Similarly, when Aribo was in that scenario, cutting inside for the second goal, again, similar, he's looking to cut it back. We'd seen a few instances where people were looking to find those players in those spaces, and that's the sort of thing that I think we'd slightly got away from in our attacking play, and it was a little less precise. And I'm watching the team at Pittodrie, I was thinking, you can see in the training that we've just reminded everybody, here's what you're best at, and it's really letting them focus on that, and they've went out and they've played that way. People talk about the red card, and of course it has a factor on the game, but for about 20 minutes before that happened, after, as Hoggy described it, after that kind of first crazy 5 minutes or so, for about 20 minutes we were looking very strong, playing some lovely stuff. The move for the penalty was gorgeous, and yeah, it was you could see the difference. That's it's very encouraging to know that we can kind of go away and it doesn't take much because the team's already very well gelled, but just there's still improvements that can be made there. A 15-game winning run, and there's still ways that we can say to the team, here's how you get even better. That's pretty encouraging.
Yeah, and there was a lot of good play. The first half, I think Rangers did take control of it. And of course, that did lead to our first opportunity, a penalty kick, which has to go down, I think, as one of the worst penalty kicks I've seen from a Rangers player. I love James Tavernier. He's having a hell of a season. Does anyone wish to defend this? Because it wasn't even close.
I thought it looked white.
You thought it looked what?
I didn't think it was that wide.
He didn't hit the fucking target.
I didn't think it was that wide.
It was about 2 foot wide. It's a dread. Given Joe Lewis is already gone, I mean, he's got the whole goal to aim at, and it's 2 foot wide. It's a shocker, but the flip side, David, is he's been tremendous all season.
I'm not saying it, but it was a penalty kick.
Well, allow it. I'd rather just talk about the red card and the foul because it's nuts.
Well, I suppose if you did have to miss one that doesn't cost you is the time to do it. And he has been tremendous from the spot. But, James, come on. If a keeper saves it, that's one thing. But, put it between the two posts and the big, the white crossbar thing. Anyway, Martyn, this is something I wanted to talk to you about because I noticed that it kind of got on your wick slightly. Not the decision itself, which was the most obvious decision that you'll ever see in your life. It was a Stonewall penalty kick. And it was a Stonewall red card because of the current rules. Yes, double jeopardy exists, but only if you make a genuine attempt to play the ball, which the Ryan Hedges did not. So pretty straightforward. Even Derek McInnes said afterwards, yep, referee explained it to us as a red card. But the punditry that we are forced to endure in this country immediately went into, oh no, it's not a penalty because I don't like that rule. That isn't how it works. Right, you don't get to say, well, okay, I accept it is a penalty under the current rules, but I don't like the rules and therefore I don't think it should be a penalty. That's just stupid.
Yeah, it's just Michael Stewart, of course. Following the two schools of punditry, one, it's not a penalty because it's Rangers. And then this, it was never a red card. Sorry, it's not a red card because it's Rangers. I don't think even Michael Stewart said it wasn't a penalty. It was more the red card issue, and then he went on this lecture on the laws of the game, and that this was never a red card because this isn't how it should be, and it's not particular to Michael Stewart, but it's a dreadful turn of punditry throughout British TV. I don't watch much or many European channels, not as much as I used to in my teenage years. But what you get is this: I think the law should be this, therefore that's a bad decision that referee's made. Now you're entitled to say the law's an ass here, and this is why. That's fine. We can have a debate about that. And in the future, I would like to see a yellow card for such an offence. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way that Michael Stewart frames it is that referee's made a mistake because I think the law should be different. And it winds me up backwards. And if it wasn't Rangers, he probably wouldn't be doing it. It's this kind of intellectual contortion that these poor souls are forced to do all throughout this season because things aren't going well for them, that they have to take such ridiculous positions. It should be entertaining. I can't allow myself to be entertained by it because it just keeps propagating the same nonsense, and you see it all through social media. I'm sure on the telly as well. I don't know what the sports scene view of it was. I couldn't quite bring myself to watch that, but we scratch our heads now and again, don't we, as a national game, saying why are we so bad and why is our game so bad, and never really point the fingers at who is talking about the game, who is speaking on its behalf to a generation or many generations of viewers, so ill-conceived, so ill-considered, and so ill-educated, that obviously that just perpetuates the same kind of garbage. But that was I don't like retweeting guys like Stuart and Sutton because I do think they're just professional trolls, really. But that tipped me over the edge. That's before we even get to Curtis May.
I did. Sorry, David. Incidentally, I did love the delicious irony last night of Kevin Thompson of this parish simply laughing at Michael Stewart on Twitter, and Michael Stewart saying to him, "Oh, come now, Kevin, that's you just playing to the gallery." Yeah,
I got a brand new irony ometer for Christmas, and that smashed it. So thanks very much, Mikey, for that one. It's this post-fact punditry that we're forced to endure here, which, as Martyn says, it's not, well, that's the situation. It's, I don't want the situation to be that, and therefore I'm going to say this with conviction. And it adds to the sort of sourness that surrounds Scottish football, and it builds into paranoia of certain people. Rangers just cannot seem to get a win without it somehow being caused by the Illuminati, even when you get the clearest of clear decisions. I actually thought, Alex, that the clearest of clearest decisions presented itself 2 minutes before half-time when whatever that thing Aberdeen have up front next to Sam Cosgrove, Sam Cosgrove with his 10 fouls yesterday, should certainly consider himself lucky not to get a booking, but he does at least have ability. He puts the ball in the net fairly regularly. That sort of lump of lard that they've fashioned into something that they can fit a top over, that runs about and into things. Curtis Main, I believe his name is. He goes in, studs up, knee high on Borna Barisic. Red card all day long, out of control, endangering an opponent, you name it, as Alan McGregor rather memorably put it in the SPFL highlight video. How many fucking boxes does it need to tick, John, to the referee? It's a red card. And again, we get this thing of a referee not given what he sees, not given what the rules are, but saying to himself, I've already sent off an Aberdeen player, I can't really send off another one, so I'll book him. That's why John Beaton shouldn't be a referee in Scotland. He's not good enough. He doesn't have confidence in himself to do it. And I understand why, what the Celtic support put him through. But he's a guy who makes decisions based on factors out with the game he's refereeing.
Do you know what the worst part is, David? He's one of our better refs. Can't believe I'm saying that, but I think he is. But this way, not many referees would have went in. Not many referees up here would have went into Derek McInnes at half-time and explained that red card for Hedges. I'll give him a small bit of credit for doing that, which obviously, by the end of the game, I was fully waiting on Derek McInnes' interview, thinking, here we go, what nonsense is he going to hit us with? But he was actually quite placid about it all because it had already been explained to him. But yes, the Curtis Main, it was a stonewall red card. How many are we going to see over the years? It's not just John Beaton, is it? It's all the referees, really. That for me, Martyn's talking about, how we improve the game, who's actually talking about it. That sort of incident and the regularity with which it happens is what's holding Scottish football back, in my opinion. I think the best thing that happened to football in England in years was referees starting to referee it in the way that we used to just be told that you wouldn't get away with that in Europe. That was a phrase that people still use up here. And in England, they started to referee the games like they should be refereed, and the football's improved. Their teams have improved in the European arena as well, due to that, and it's a better spectacle now. That one wound me up more from the Michael Stewart / Sports Scene commentary. All three of them in Sports Scene said that wasn't a red card, and Michael Stewart's talking about not enough contact, which
isn't a thing.
Exactly.
It's not the criteria. It doesn't come into the criteria. So that's either not knowing the rules or, as Martyn has pointed out, just disregarding them because it doesn't suit what you want to say. It's starting from, I don't want that player sent off because it's Rangers, and working back. Yeah, the contacts. There's a few phrases that still kick about that wind me up. That's one of them. There was no contact. He won the ball. Or, the other famous one, he wasn't the last man or whatever, all these sort of things that are just absolutely irrelevant, never been in the rules of the game ever at any point for these things, but there you go. Red card all day long. I think you're right. I think John Beaton has looked at it and went, I've already put them down to 10, which is, as you say, is a poor way to make the decision in that moment. And if anybody is listening to this and hasn't heard Alan McGregor's reaction to it, please, I urge you to go and find it because it's beautiful. Yeah, you need to be careful in those SPFL videos. Cameras can pick you up when you least expect it.
Yes.
Or rather, recorders can pick you up when you least expect it. Ian, into the second half, Rangers get the goal. Looking good for a third, actually. And then the manager said a few players dropped to walking football pace. That's a quote from the man. He was less than impressed. I think they felt the game was done. I did, to be fair. It looked as though it was completely done. And then Rangers somehow contrived to get done, despite being 2 up away from home against 10 men, somehow contrived to get done on the break. We have been tremendous this year. That was only the 6th goal our defence has conceded. But my God, I reckon Alan McGregor was booting some balls for his clean sheet being ruined after that one.
I'll bet you he was. I mean, our second goal is beautiful. It's Morelos again. It's Kent again. It's patience, as Alex talked about. And you're right. We look to put our foot on their throat for about the next 10, 15 minutes and then didn't chuck it. Just visibly took the foot off the gas. and stop doing the basics. Stop doing those very basic things of, if we've got the fullbacks far up the park, we've got sitting midfielders to cover. We stop doing all that. And their goal comes from, we've got fullbacks up the park, we've got midfielders up the park, and somehow, having really not attacked for just about the entire match and being down to 10 men, they end up with, what was it, a 2-on-2.
Yep.
And the boy, Matty Kennedy, I think it was, has got basically a one-on-one with McGregor, strokes it past him, and at that point, you're thinking, oh shit, how are we going to react? Now, in reality, David, cold light of day, the game then turned into this bizarre game of football, which resembled Easter Road and Helicopter Sunday in the last 15 minutes. We were passing the ball about at the back, waiting for them to attack. They didn't want to attack because they know that we would do them. And nothing happened. And it's only really when we started attacking in the last 5 minutes, the game livened up again. But it was an atrocious goal to lose. And I do suspect McGregor's booting balls. I mean, if he's that angry at John Beaton for that tackle, one can only imagine what he was like in the dressing room with the midfield and the defence. Because it was a shocker. It's just one of those lapses. We've been done. It's not cost us, I guess, is the main thing. So as long as we learn from it, David, then that's fine. But we even when we're down to 10 men, even when we're 2-0 up, we've not been over the line with this squad. We've not been over the line for so many years that we simply cannot afford to switch off. We did it in the Cup in Paisley.
We did.
And we couldn't flick it back on. And yesterday we did it. We lost the goal and we eventually turned it back on and took control of the game. We've got to be at it for the 90 minutes. So as long as the players learn from that, then fine, we've got away with it. But it was unnecessary, completely unnecessary.
Yeah, and of course, we're always awaiting the kick in the nuts. And I will say this, I thought the team managed the game out pretty straightforwardly. I don't think Alan McGregor was called into it. But even so, I can understand why the manager wasn't best pleased. But Martyn, it is 15 wins in a row, which is just silly. It is 6 goals conceded in the league by the middle of January. This is a pretty good side. It's a pretty special side. And, we're going to talk about the kind of self-immolation at Parkhead, which is of a standard that I think a Tibetan monk would be proud of. But even so, it's a remarkable set of statistics that this side are putting together. And if they continue in the right vein, there's no reason that they can't add to this.
We were on the flagship after the Hibs game, and there was a lot of angst and gnashing and wailing going on in that particular podcast. I think we were chatting earlier today and said we may have been a bit over the top that day. We weren't. It was a repeat of what we'd seen before. What we asked and what we hoped was a good response. None of us could see a response quite like this. It's been mature. It's been varied. It's just handling the game as it comes, the fixture as it comes, the situation as it comes, more or less. And that's something that we that haven't or didn't characterise the previous 2 league campaigns, which tended to be all or nothing and absolutely leaving it out on the field or looking as if they'd never played football together before. It's been an incredible story. And if this does continue to trend the way it's going, we're obviously going to be league champions. Only COVID, in my opinion, can stop that. I don't think realistically speaking, I don't think it could be done on a football basis. And let's not kid ourselves on. Let's not rewrite history. I was at Tynecastle at the end of February last year, and that Scottish Cup game. He was done. And then, again, threw the players under the bus, and then they vomited up that performance against Hamilton at Ibrox, and right, we're kind of back to the drawing board. Where do we go? It looked lost. He looked helpless, hopeless, bereft of ideas. And then, in the words of Alan Partridge, China happened, and the story in this transformation of what Rangers did, what this management team did during that reset, is going to be one of the most important in the club's history, because this has been incredible.
They are a special side, Ian, and I don't think we'll fully appreciate it until the day that they have the big silver thing in their hands, and that's understandable because we all want it so much. I mean, we really do. But it's all right to be confident that we're going to be able to see it through. And it's all right to be worried about other factors, affecting it and whatnot. But I do think this team has earned the right for us to trust them.
Yeah, but it's not human nature, David, is it? We're what, 10 years on, almost 10 years on since the last league championship. So therefore, and we do want it so badly. And therefore, against the likes of Motherwell, we all probably reacted in the same way during that game. I know you and I did.
You heard from me in the last 20 minutes of yesterday.
Indeed.
I was needing a pair of those Billy Connolly see-through +4s for the incontinence pants.
So you're right, absolutely, that this lot have earned the right to be trusted. Absolutely. We've gone through the season just, getting over those wee mental hurdles. Supporters and team, incidentally, and management team. We've Celtic away, first game of the season. We've how do we bounce back from European games? How do we bounce back from defeats? What's the first game in January going to look like? Because let's face it, the past 2 seasons, that's been a shocker in the league. And every single time, even though we've not maybe fired on all cylinders for a couple of months, every single time we're coming up with the answers. And that's different. It is different for this squad. It's different for the management team as well. And I think often, David, we kind of tend to forget Gerrard's still a baby in management terms. And yes, it's not great when he's learning on our dime, if you like, but that's what happens. And we're seeing the benefit, we're reaping the benefit of it now. I tend to agree with Martyn that whilst I don't want to say it's done, it's going to be just a bit. If we can continue like this through January, no one's stopping us at all. 21 wins and 2 draws in 23 games, David. 6 goals we've lost. 2 of them at Easter Road, for crying out loud. This is a special team. And as I say, up until yesterday, the previous 2 months, they had been fired nowhere near on all cylinders, yet still managing to grind out the wins.
And with that comes something that Martyn's talked about before, is scoreboard pressure, because it's the pressure of knowing that your opponents are not going to let up, that your opponents are already up over the hill and far away. As has been pointed out before, Celtic need to win 4 matches just to be 10 points behind. That may explain what can only be called an absolute wet fanny of a situation for Celtic over the last few weeks, where things have been so amateurish that it's led some Rangers fans to think that they're deliberately trying to get the season canned because it's so far from sensible that it makes it difficult to conceive that anyone with an intellect into the 3 figures could have come up with it. I was walking at Vibrox last week after the game, and I saw the Celtic bus being loaded up, and there were lots and lots and lots of suitcases. And I said to a friend, that's strange. They really need that much gear for the game? And he said, no, they're going to Dubai. And I said, what? Sorry, what? I must have missed this. He said, they're going to Dubai in the middle of a frigging pandemic. Aye. Why? Training camp. Now, firstly, I think we've already proved that going to Dubai in January is a bloody stupid idea. But Celtic have certainly, added for the scientific experiment. They've added their quote of evidence to it. You'll all have seen the pictures. Everybody's seen the pictures. Nicola Sturgeon's seen the pictures, and nobody was particularly impressed by it. Shockingly enough, Celtic have arrived back to discover that indeed they do have a positive COVID test. Christophe Jullien, who for some reason had to go on this training trip, despite the fact that he was injured and couldn't train. And 13 of their players and staff are having to self-isolate at the moment. That is not the end of it, incidentally. The fact has more positive cases may be returned as the incubation period grows. Alex, it has been nothing but a shambles from them. And yet we have the SFA out defending them, saying they have no case to answer. Ian Maxwell, the chief executive, said that today. We've had the SPFL saying nothing on Celtic whatsoever, but instead shutting down Leagues 1 and 2, which made the Stenhousemuir chairman say that we feel that we've become martyrs to Celtic's trip, that the SFA felt compelled the SPFL felt compelled to take some action, but obviously not against Celtic. I do hate to sound, like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, but there's an awful lot of evidence here to suggest that any action against Celtic by the governing bodies is fought against with a fervour that had Celtic fought with it, they wouldn't be 154 points behind us.
Well, that's certainly the truth. Yeah, I think I don't like to use this example really, but I think the stupidity of the whole situation is summed up by the fact that 99% of Celtic supporters can't believe that they went. Even their own supporters aren't defending it, and we know the sort of things they'll defend. So that just shows you how stupid it was. For Julian to have went when he was injured, a report today suggested there was 49 players and staff went on that trip to Dubai. Now, it's a training camp, and if you've been allowed to do that and you feel as though that's the best move to make, which I don't. In fact, I'll come back to that because I have a kind of theory on that as well. 49 seems like a high number to me. I imagine between squad and coaches, you're maybe in the low 30s. Some physios. Well, I reckon there's a good 10 to 15 people where I'm like, why are they there? Do you really need a media team over there to record you running about a pitch in Dubai? Is that essential? I don't think it is. For a few days training, things like that. It seems like it's more like a jolly, isn't it? It just comes across that way. I would be, far be it from me to ever wish to be in this situation, but were I a Celtic fan, I would also have been asking why you were arranging this thing during a midweek that could have been used for a game with your 3 games behind. If you had belief in your team that you were going to go to Ibrox and win, the first thing I would have been thinking, we're going to go there, we're going to win, we're going to drag this gap back a little bit, then we're going to play one of those games in hand and we're going to win that, and we're going to start to ramp the pressure up. That would have been my first thought. Not, we might win if we go to Ibrox, but then we'll just go away for over a week and let them get yet another game played before we play. That doesn't seem the smartest move to me. So it suggests that there was a lack of confidence in general. Or, as I think you have described it in previous pods this season so far, David, a half-arsing that just seems to have taken over at every level in their club at the moment. It's been phenomenally hilarious from our perspective, but yeah, the whole thing, the fact that the SFA and SPFL have done nothing and largely defended it is probably the bigger issue here, and it's farcical, really. But did anybody on this pod expect anything different?
Martyn, you're a sensible fellow. I'll accept that sometimes I can let my head run away with me a little bit, or rather let my heart run away with me a little bit. Tell me I'm being silly here when I think to myself, are they trying to get this canned?
Well, we've talked about scoreboard pressure. No one likes to be in that position. You want to get that deficit as you see it down to, all things being equal. They don't appear to have any intention of playing these games in hand anytime soon. And we are expecting the nationwide COVID picture to get worse before it gets better. January, early February could be pretty tough. So they're not catching us on the field. I don't care what anyone says. The general shambles around the club, around the team, early on in the season has just continued. It's a malaise. They're tired. No one's listening anymore. Lost the dressing room. We've seen this story before in various different guises throughout football. It's their only hope is to be in a position if the national picture is so dramatic that a government feels, professional sport really isn't the priority at this minute in time. We're calling it to say, look, we've got 6-7 games still outstanding. You can't You can't possibly do that. Just null and void. The Euros aren't moving. I don't think you wouldn't put it anything past them. This is the Tour of Japan club, and that wasn't even the worst thing they tried that particular season. So no, I don't imagine you're being overly paranoid or overly silly to think that hasn't crossed their minds. It is why they've shipped a cast of thousands over to this camp, including someone who had to get crutches to get on the plane. I wonder if they expected the government to act pretty quickly. By all accounts, they were given a bit of a doing today. And yeah, maybe it just runs out for them in terms of everyone bending over backwards, because you get so used to it, you just expect it, don't you? But they're a mess. They're an absolute mess. And this, just when you think some of the days that we've seen this season, the sharp barrier and all that can't be beaten, today has surpassed that and more.
It's great, isn't it?
It's like they're trying to catch up on a decade of ridiculousness at Ibrox.
I was going to say that, man. It genuinely is like the last decade in
Squeezed,
3 months.
yeah.
3 months worth of banter years where it's almost a case that Rangers have gone, right, we're getting there, almost even keel, championships in sight. The banter years, and Celtic have just gone, fucking hold my beer. They've just gone nuts. And we're talking from top to bottom. I mean, the whole Dubai trip, it was approved by the Joint Response Group in November. And I genuinely don't really, from a rules point of view, no big deal with them going. Morally, it's not a good look just getting papped by Rangers and then boarding a plane and going for pints in Dubai. It's all the professional, the elite sport rules that they've broken along the way, the pints by the pool, the in the public bar, all the rest of it. And here they've got COVID. And yeah, Nicola Sturgeon did not hold back today, Martyn, at all, talking about how the rest of the team shouldn't suffer because of one team. And actually, that took me by surprise. I'll freely admit that, because she's right. And, so the absolute right thing there might get worse. It might get, stopped down the line. It might get called for the growing null and void brigade. All I'll say is go onto Google and type in Neil Doncaster null and void, and you get a plethora of Celtic websites from April and May, basically poo-pooing all those people in radio and BBC who were given it as null and void an option. It's funny how things change, guys. Bottom line is the precedent's been set, David. Null and void was not an option last season. From a financial point of view, from a sponsorship point of view, from a Sky Sports point of view, nothing's changed. If anything, we're more desperate for money.
It's also changed. Sorry, Hoggy. It's also changed just in terms of the COVID picture. We didn't know what this was in March. No one was on top of it. No footballing authority was on top of it. And forget the shambles that resulted. We are ahead of the game. We can kind of deal with it if clubs act responsibly and if individual players act responsibly. And if they don't, as our individual players were banned for 7 games, you'll pay the price. But just, I know that the end of a long run of incumbent champions has to end in tiredness. It always does. In bad decision making, it always does. But this is on just it turned up to 11. Why they didn't sack him before, I could not work that out. We talked the first Old Firm game when he had his pre-match interview as if he'd just been in Vienna's all night. Things were not right there. The European shambles. We kind of get used to that, 'cause that's kind of happened a few seasons now. But I'm at a loss. I tried to. There must be a rational explanation. But
it's hubris. That's the rational explanation.
It's next level.
You see it. Hold on, Ian. You see it in their statements. It's hubris. We're used to getting our own way, and therefore we cannot countenance any situation in which we don't get our own way, and therefore we're going to make these decisions regardless of logic or common sense. It's tunnel vision, it's bunker mentality.
It's entitlement. It's the rules don't apply to us. And even if they do, we won't get sanctioned anyway. Let's summarise this. Celtic took a defender who's out for 4 months. They took him to Dubai for pints, basically, under the guise of essential training camp. He gets COVID. Now 16 of them, or 13, and whatever the number is, have to self-isolate. And still the statement is, well, we could have got it anywhere. How's about genuine? I'm being genuine when I say this, probably while smiling, David. The hubris and the entitlement through the statements that come out of Parkhead, you're seeing a support turn over on the other side of the city, because none of them are blaming, COVID 1690, and none of them are blaming the Masons and all the usual stuff. Maybe some whack jobs are, but
yeah.
The vast majority are going, our club's a shambles. What are you doing about it? And the answer is, we're going to sink pints by the pool in Dubai. It's up there in terms of McCann-like worst holidays. It's insane decision making that they've gone. Yes, they were approved to go under its elite sports camp stuff, and they've ripped the piss out of it, and now they're going to get what's coming to them.
How can you take Barca somewhere and claim to be elite sports? I mean, that's straight away you're at it. But long may it continue. The important thing though, Alex, is we need to continue to do our thing, because I don't think that Celtic's continuing leap down the plug hole hasn't been affected. If we were a shambles, they wouldn't be making so many bad decisions. I'm not saying they wouldn't be making bad decisions, but they wouldn't be making so many bad decisions. We're forcing them, and they're out of practice at reacting in that way.
They are, actually, yeah. This is an area where I'm very, very happy to admit that I was wrong. For a few years, when people would say, "Oh, we've never seen them under genuine pressure,"
me, and you would sit on this show and say, "I don't know."
I'd like to point out that I didn't jump in when people were saying nobody saw this turnaround coming from the squad either. Anyway.
No, let's not focus on that. The important thing right now to focus on is that I was right.
You were right, and I was
okay?
Right, yes.
That's the important thing. I don't want anybody that we can come back to your thing on another occasion, but right now, fair dues, one each.
Fair enough. No, and I was wrong here, because I did think to myself, okay, yeah, I thought we were putting them under. I thought we were maybe putting them under some sort of pressure, especially towards this sort of time last season, when we just beat them at their own patch, and we had a great start to last season, but then obviously we let that slip pretty quickly, and that took it all off them. It's been that continuing nature of it, as you said, and as you guys rightly pointed out to me in the past. It's as much as we never really kept our foot on the gas. There would be times where we'd be clearly right up in their faces, but it never really kept there. We never really stayed there. And in this season, that has been the case. We've sensed a bit of weakness. We've pounced on it. Not just on the pitch either, but off it as well. So it's been interesting. I'm with the other guys on this. I cannot believe how much it's sort of turned, or how farcical some of our decision making has been. That it's after when you see it from ourselves over the past decade, some of the things, and these were things that were done deliberately by people who did not have Rangers' best interests at heart at all. Who were in positions at the club who could hurt us, but through that, this makes what they're doing even more farcical, because supposedly this was this season, wasn't it? They flung a lot of money at it over the past 12 months, and players that they've been bringing in. They've been preparing for this season for a wee while now, and for them to have given us, for them to have served up what they have is, it's quite beautiful.
Well, I'm enjoying it, and I'm sure everyone, well, not everyone listening to us. I know a few Celtic fans listening to try and get what the enemy is thinking. Well, what the enemy thinking is right now, lol, and hopefully we'll be allowed out for the party that we anticipate coming soon. Right, I would just like to thank our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and to thank my guests this evening, the wonderful Mr. Alex Staff.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The tremendous Mr. Ian Hogg.
It's a pleasure as always, mate.
And the wonderful Mr. Martyn Ramsey.
I was going to say it's a pleasure as always. This one a wee bit more pleasurable than some.
Remember, if you want to catch up, not just with me, but the three guys here who all have their own shows over on Heart and Hand on Patreon, then just go there. It's patreon.com/Heart and Hand. Loads of great content coming your way. And especially as we're all locked in the house at the moment, we're making more pods. Hopefully you'll be able to listen to more pods. It's just $1.99 per month, and I advise you all to go and check it out. Right, thank you for listening to me. I'll be back next week. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.